Okay, I'll start. I'm really glad you're all here. Um, Even with the pandemic, I have to say, the shock of being 80 is mind boggling, but also very sweet to be able to celebrate with all of you because I haven't seen so many of you in so long. And I actually thought that I would talk a little bit about our roots because at a certain point I tried so hard to figure it out, especially with our father's cousins. And I'm still in touch with some of them. Anyway, an easy way to think about our roots starts with Herman Fox, who was my and my generation's great grandfather. Herman emigrated from Mitau in Latvia to Belfast, Northern Ireland in the late 19th century. He began as a peddler. He became a British citizen and then a pillar of the Jewish community, where later he was president of the synagogue. He had one child, his son, whom we all called Granduncle Barney, who later became the second most important city official in the city in Belfast, the recorder of Belfast. His older brother was my father, and your uncle or granduncle, as it were, Simon Fox. And he was the father of my father, Casper, and also of our matriarch, Aunt Martha, who actually went to school in Belfast around the time that my father was born. And later, I was the first American to visit our relatives there, some of whom both Herb and I are still in touch with. My father adored your grandmother, for the most of you, Aunt Martha. And Steve and Sharon's father, Uncle Si, probably agreed. There were two other brothers, along with Si, Casper, and Martha, in order after Martha, the eldest, Uncle Sam and Uncle Robbie. Growing up, we spent a lot of our holidays in Middle Village with the Schrags, Yvonne, Gloria, Muriel, and Herbie, who are my and my brother's first cousins. And so some of you, like Debbie and Fran, are my first cousins once removed. I used to think we were second cousins, but now I think you're just once removed. I was really pleased when Debbie and Jay suggested that this family Zoom celebration. March 23rd is a significant day also, since not long after World War II, as Debbie well knows, and Jay and Tony, Muriel and Howie were married on March 23rd on my birthday. And later, Stacy also got married on that day. And I have a very vivid memory of Muriel I get teary when I say it, of Muriel walking down the aisle at Stacy's wedding. It really makes me feel teary because it was so brave of her to do it because she was so ill at the time. On a happier note, I grin when I think about Jeff, Paul, and Ira's jokes. Ho, ho, ho. And mentioning other family members, I'm sorry not to see Michael and Jane and Susan more often, and David. I also think about Gloria's husband, George, who often spearheaded a hunt for my father, Casper, who had Alzheimer's disease and was unfortunately known for going wherever he felt like going, even though he had no idea of what his address or his phone number was where he lived. Maybe Great Neck, maybe. I think that just about every cop in Nassau County hunted for him at some time. But George was actually one of, also who visited, would spearhead some of the searches. My mother was very fond of all of you. And one of the people she liked best was Jay. because Jay, who interned at Long Island Jewish Hospital, not far from Great Neck, would come and have dinner with my parents. And that was a real break for my mother. I mean, apart from her affection for him, it added joy to her life to have him come and pay attention and be enthusiastic about her cooking and other things, and talk about people she knew. It really cheered him up. My father being lost, I mean, besides all the family members who were out looking for him, I think that just about every cop in Nassau County hunted for him at some time or another. And he always cherished his nieces, your parents. He visited them a lot. They always were ready to offer him a cup of coffee when he walked in the door. And it's still very meaningful for us. And I want to say that I'm glad that from my brother and me, I'm glad the Fox name will be continued with my brother's son, Jeff, and his family. He now has, as some of you know, 2 children, and they live in Westchester County. I don't feel ancient. I know that I have good genes. I've also always thought that I looked more like my father's family than my mother's, especially Gloria and Fran. And I have to say, especially to Jill, that I'm sorry that Sherry is no longer with us for this gathering. Our roots are meaningful, and now, having been vaccinated and glad to be thriving, I hope that all of you are also reveling in life, blossoming all around us. Thank you very much. Thank you for wanting to celebrate my birthday with me. Thank you.
So folks can unmute themselves if there are stories or anecdotes that people want to share.
A question, Margot, did I miss a generation between Herman and Simon? My notes?
No. Herman Fox was Simon's father. So he emigrated, he went from Latvia in the second half of the 19th century. I have to think about this is also, I haven't thought about it for a while. So Simon, who was our grandfather, actually was born in Russia. He must have come as a little boy to Belfast with his father, who was Herman. And Herman settled. First, he was a peddler. He did lots of things. He was in the rag trade for a while. And then he became a very prestigious citizen of Belfast. One of the times when I was there, somebody told me or wrote me, someone from Belfast, that his photograph, Herman Fox, who was a past president of the synagogue in the beginning of the 20th century, that his picture is still hanging in the synagogue there. I must say that the couple of times that I went to Belfast, and I suppose Herb, you didn't either, we never saw this picture of him looking, I suppose, distinguished in the synagogue in Belfast. And unfortunately, the cousins are no longer there. Herb is in touch with Jillian, whom I stayed with on my first trip, because Granduncle Barney decided that I should stay with his son Jackie, a resident magistrate who had 2 daughters, Jillian and Susan. And Herb is in touch with Jillian.
She passed away, Margot.
I didn't know.
Oh my
you
goodness.
forgot. You
Yeah.
forgot, Margot.
Yeah.
Jillian did? No, I only know about her husband.
At least several years ago.
Oh, you knew, you forgot. I know you know, you knew.
Yeah, you knew at the time
You
anyway.
knew at the time.
But listen, although I'm younger than you are, I can attest to the fact that certain things escape our memories from time to time.
Margot, you are now the former keeper of the flame.
Oh, well, that's fine with me. I'm glad to step aside because I somehow felt, and I wasn't sure if any of the younger, of the next generation would be in this, which was what motivated me to do a little bit of bio. I was really thinking about kids like Abby and Denise and Stacy and Matt, who might not, who